Kisuk, Great Spirit, good Creator of all things, grandmothers and grandfathers of the 4 sacred directions and 4 sacred races, please hear our humble prayer. Walalan, thank you for all those who are gathered in this sacred place. Walalan to all those who have come here today to learn about the sacredness of water. Today we need to pray for the water. In Standing Rock, Sipekne'katik, Grassy Narrows, Barrier Lake, Muskrat Falls, Poulette, Harriet's Field, and Williams Wood, Pictou Landing, in BC, and everywhere. We need to pray for the water protectors, those grassroots people and supporters who are standing up to protect their water, their lands, their families, their ancestors, and their future generations as they are on the front lines to protect the sacred. The life, culture, and strength of indigenous peoples of the world cannot be separated from the water. We embrace our connection to the lifeblood of Mother Earth and encourage all people to remember that water is sacred and that it is our responsibility to protect the water. We reach out in truth and reconciliation to teach you about us and about our connection to Mother Earth and sacred water and to each other. We give our sincere gratitude for the many blessings of our Mother Earth that she provides. We give our sincere gratitude to the water. Water is life. Water is sacred. Someone, water, I love you. Kesalo. I thank you, Walalan. I respect you. Get me down. Walalan for our Mother Earth who provides us all that is needed to live. Walalan for the sacred water that quenches our thirst and helps things to grow. Walalan for the 4 sacred winds that gives us air, the breath of life. Walalan for the sacred fire, the sun that gives us light and warmth. Walalan for all our relations, our human family, the 4-legged, the winged ones, the swimmers, the crawlers, the plants, the trees, and the rocks that enables all our nations to live today. We pray for the good of our nations, our communities, our families, our elders, youth, children, our leaders, and our medicine people. We pray for strength and courage that encourages growth and positive change. We give thanks for the resilience that you give to us in our times of need. We give thanks for the courage of our hearts, our female energy, and of our minds, our male energy, that empowers our potential for healing. We pray for mankind to embrace and love and respect our Mother Earth, to take action to turn around the effects of climate change, and to help to do what we can to help our Mother Earth and our sacred waters to heal. We do this, Kisuk, Creator, so that our children and our future generations will always have a safer place to grow, to live, and will always know, and will always have clean water to drink, and will always know to honor the sacredness of water in our Mother Earth. Thank you.
Hi everyone, thank you so much for coming. Thanks Dorene for that great care. My name is Robin and I work at the Council of Canadians in Halifax. The Council of Canadians is a big social justice organization that works on a whole lot of issues, including water, environmental justice, and other things. And one of my big projects lately has been working to support people who are trying to stop Alton Gas for a multitude of reasons. And so here we are doing that here tonight. So thank you for coming. I'll be moderating, obviously, as I'm standing here talking first. Sorry, I'm just seeing Sam looking for my notebook, and it's really funny. I don't know where I put it, to be honest with you. There it is. Amazing. Thank you. Look, now I can do this properly. Great. Okay. So, yeah, I'll be moderating. A few things to know. We're currently live streaming, so hey to everyone on the live stream. There's a couple of iPads hanging around, and that's how we're live streaming, and this microphone up here. So if anyone has questions at the end, I'm going to repeat them very loudly just so people online can hear. And at the end, when we get there, I'll explain all of that. So before we get going, I want to do a bit of an introduction to what Alton Gas is and why we're fighting it for a couple specific reasons, and then I'll turn it over to the speakers. Before I get too far into that, that's working. I do want to acknowledge that, of course, we are here on unceded Mi'kmaq territory this evening. And I want to acknowledge that for thousands of years, the Mi'kmaq have sought to live on this land very gently and offered assistance to the first European travelers who came here, some of whom are our ancestors. And those same people signed treaties of peace and friendship with our ancestors. Just really trying to figure out my notes here. Ooh, that's not how that works. Well, anyway, I'll just go from my gut. What I'm trying to say is that we have to remember this troubled history so that we can understand the current trauma of ongoing colonization and keep that in mind as we go forward working to stop Alton Gas and other projects that impact all of us and especially the Mi'kmaq people in our lives and in our communities. So that is sort of the tone that I just wanted to set before we get going. I really want to figure out how to get my notes to work. If anyone has any ideas. I'll wing it. It's cool. So Alton Gas is a really bad idea. This project is meant to store huge quantities of natural gas at really high pressures, deep underground in salt caverns. So these salt caverns don't exist yet, but the salt deposit that they plan to drill into does. So their plan essentially is to drill this giant well about a kilometer or maybe a little less underground. They want to put water into it to dissolve the salt, leaving this big cavern. And then once all of that brine is there, that salt brine, which will be about 8 times the salinity of seawater, they want to pipe that out of the ground along some farmers' fields and straight to the Sipekne'katik River. The idea is that once the water gets to the river, they can put it into this channel. It'll mix around with the water. The tide will come in, mix it up, the tide will go out and take the water away. However, almost immediately upon building this channel, digging it out of the side of the river, the Sipekne'katik River said, no thanks, and filled it with 7 feet of mud. So currently Alton Gas's plans are paused because all of their equipment is under 7 feet of mud. Love it. I hope Dale tells us more about that later because he took a really great video last week that pertains to this. And just to give some context, this is where the project is. So this is Stewiacke. This is the intersection of the Sipekne'katik and the Stewiacke rivers. The star on the right side is where the caverns are. So that's where the salt deposit is deep underground. It will be solution mined out. And then the brine will be piped about 12 kilometers to the side of the river where they plan to put it down the river. So there are lots and lots of things that are foolish about this project that we have to focus on only a few so that we can cram it into an hour and a half. The 4 we want to talk to about tonight are water, climate change, Indigenous rights, and environmental rights. So Alton Gas poses threats to water at absolutely every stage of its existence. To create the storage caverns, they would have to produce this brine, which would be pumped through farmers' fields. I'm sure you can all imagine what happens if salt was to spill onto farmers' fields. And then that brine would go out the Sipekne'katik River, which is home of important fish species, generations of fishermen, and has been the centerpiece of Mi'kmaq culture and history for millennia. Once the caverns are operational, they risk a whole other set of, or they have a whole other set of water issues. One, putting high pressure natural gas underground runs the risk of that natural gas seeping up through any number of cracks or whatever in the geology, so we run the risk of methane entering our groundwater through that way. There's also a pipeline that they're planning to build, which would carry gas to and from the caverns, and the plan for that pipeline runs through countless wetlands, land completely dotted with wetlands and stands of old growth forest. That pipeline would cross the Stewiacke River, so now we're risking 2 rivers, and so forth. So you can see how this poses threats to water at all stages of its life. So that's water. Onto climate. This iteration of the project only includes 2 caverns now. Originally it was 4, and for mysterious reasons that we don't understand, the company has canceled 2 of those caverns, and so now they're planning on building 2. However, in their original proposal, they also said they would soon like to build 10 or 15 more. So it's clear that this is a foot in the door type of project. They're trying to expand the natural gas industry, and I can only imagine that that is to import fracked gas, export it again, probably has something to do with LNG, and so we can see that this is very related to just the expansion of the fossil fuel industry. And if we think about climate change, there's just absolutely no room whatsoever in the global carbon budget to be building new fossil fuel infrastructure. And so that's why I think under no circumstances should this project go forward. This project is located near Sipekne'katik First Nation, which is one of many Mi'kmaq communities in Nova Scotia. The original consultation process didn't include Sipekne'katik, despite the community being located extremely close to the project. So back on that map, they were right there on the side. Really, this project is right around Sipekne'katik, and so to not consult them is pretty wild. Yeah, so they were not included in the original consultation process, and after a really long and bitter appeal and Supreme Court case, Sipekne'katik actually won the right to a little bit of continued consultation, which I hope Dorene will tell us a little bit about later. Even if negotiating made sense, negotiating on Nova Scotia's terms is not enough. So this project to me really demonstrates that the foundation of the negotiating relationship between Nova Scotia and the Mi'kmaq has strayed from the intention of the treaty. So for Mi'kmaq to be able to exist on this land to their best advantage, as the treaty says, that means having a real say in how this land is used by all of us. This means changing our duty to consult, which is a commitment more to a process than an outcome. It is a commitment to a process, not an outcome. We need to change this idea of duty to consult into the idea of valuing free, prior, and informed consent. And that's just not where we're at, and until we are, projects like this can't go forward. The way that Sipekne'katik as a band and as a community has been kept out of the decision-making carries over to non-Indigenous communities as well. Detailed information about this project is so hard to get. I spent most of January trying to track down information, and I got nearly nowhere. Like the list of things that we don't know is truly horrifying. We don't actually really know the type of salt formation that they're planning to drill into, or if it's suitable for in trying to build our sustainability, not only minimize the damage that we're doing. And to do this, we need to change a lot of environmental policies and decision-making practices, and I think that Alton Gas lays that all very bare. So Alton really, this project does pose a lot of risks to our water, our climate, and all of our rights. But it also presents some pretty real opportunities for us to make some wins. So to fight and win, to protect our groundwater, our rivers, and our wetlands could give us a precedent to point to in the future and continue protecting those resources. To fight and win against stopping a fossil fuel corporation from going forward, or a fossil fuel project, that means we're directly stopping those emissions from entering the atmosphere, but we're also telling our government to do a fundamentally better job on climate change while also signaling to the oil industry that they're not welcome in our communities. To recognize and honor the treaties while stopping Alton Gas is to build alliances between Mi'kmaq and settler communities that's necessary for reconciliation and living in peace and friendship in the spirit of the treaties. So those are some of the basics about the project, the problems that we're trying to fight against, and the opportunities we have to win. I really hope that you're sufficiently motivated to listen to the rest of the talk and also join us in this fight after it's over. I have some specific instructions. Oh, yes, okay. The speakers are going to talk. I'm going to do that at the end, Barbara. That's fine. The speakers will talk, and then we'll have some question time. So we'll get to that when we get to that. And so I will stop talking now and turn it over to Dorene, who will go first. Dorene is a grassroots grandmother and longtime water protector and personal hero.
Which means I love my Indian ways. Well, first, I guess we need to look at what we're fighting for. We're fighting for life. Water is life. Water is sacred. When people put their lives on the line to protect water, basic human right for clean water to drink. And we look around the world and we see Indigenous people are dying while protecting their water as corporations come in to destroy their land. But they all happen simultaneously, bringing water from the oceans, from the Gulf of Mexico, from the Atlantic, the Pacific, and even up to Churchill Falls. And she organized walks to converge this water at Lake Superior to one of the most polluted of the Great Lakes, to heal the water and to raise awareness about the sacredness of water and what was happening. And she started these walks, and as I was following her online, I felt like we needed to do something here. And I organized a small walk in Point Pleasant Park to raise awareness about her Mother Earth walk, and then raise awareness about the sacredness of water. Last year we walked the Sipekne'katik River water walk to raise awareness about what was happening, or what was they were proposing to do to our river. And we walked for 8 days through all communities through East Hants County, from Maitland to Grand Lake in Enfield. And people came out of their house, and this is the first time they ever even heard about what was happening on the Shibi, what they were planning and doing to the Sipekne'katik River. They didn't know, just like we didn't know. The chiefs were very supportive for Idle No More in 2012. You know, it was talking about our treaty rights across Canada. And we were out on the highway talking about, you know, saving our lands and protecting our lands and our water. And today we need more of our own leadership just to unite with us, to unite together for the people of Sipekne'katik, to help us in our fight to protect our water. We need more support from our allies, from all the people who in Nova Scotia, who I mean everywhere. When we say we're fighting for the water, we don't just mean the Sipekne'katik. We mean all the water. The Bay of Fundy, all the streams, the brooks, everything that would be impacted by industry. In 2009 was the first time Alton Gas put out a press release saying that they've been consulting with our community for several years, and that wasn't true. They say they began this process in 2006, and in 2014 was the first time we knew about this, when we seen the pipes going, you know, off the highway. We're driving by and we see a clear cut, and we see pipe, they're laying pipe, and I was like, when did we get pipelines in Nova Scotia? What's that? And we find out that pipe is going down to the Shibi River, and that's their plan, coming from the brining site 12 miles away in Fernwood. And it was really upsetting to find out that they were doing this, and we didn't even know about it. we found out just like everybody else that was driving along the highway. There was no notices in the paper. We didn't have any town halls. We didn't have anything. It was just when we started, we built that protection camp on the side of the highway and started passing out. We had slowdowns where we slowed down traffic and passed out pamphlets to tell people this was happening. And we had a lot of support, people beeping at us and actually stopping to take a pamphlet and find out what we were protesting. Our Micmac leadership in Millbrook and Sipekne'katik came with us to Halifax, you know, to protest and let the government know that we weren't going to just allow this to happen. There was no consultation with our Mi'kmaq people in Nova Scotia. When we found out people from Brentwood came to this site on the highway, and they said, you know, this is going up in our backyard too. You know, this is what's happening to our land, and it's like one project, but it's affecting 2 communities or more. You know, like all around it. They brought signs, you know, that said no gas caverns under our ass, and they had a donkey on there, and they were on the highway with us, you know. So people were seeing that it was not an Indigenous problem. It's not just our problem. It's everybody's problem. It's Nova Scotia's problem. There's a picture of the brining site and Alton Gas site down at the river, and the Treaty Truckhouse. So we built, many of us got together, and we had a lot of leadership with the Native women to come together, to grandmothers, bring our people together to talk about what can we do to show that this is our fishing grounds. This is where we fish. This is part of who we are. So we built the Treaty Truckhouse. It's what's in our treaty, our 1752 treaty, that we can build a truck house for trade. And we said, well, okay, we'll build a truck house and we'll trade. People brought food and we gave them fish, or we gave them crafts or whatever. We just traded there, and we established this Treaty Truckhouse. And I think there should be one on every river, and every place where there's clear cutting, wherever they're damaging our lands, we have it in our treaty. We can put these up anywhere and trade. We'll trade our clean water. We'll give them clean water, clean fish. The Micmac allies worked together. We built this truck house. We put up our flag. When they created the Mixon Channel, they created an island on the dike. So we canoed out there, and we went out there and we raised our flag and a teepee on that, and we said, well, this is Treaty Island, and we claimed that land. We put our fish in our eel traps right in their channel. 7 eel traps, 7 grandmothers laid eel traps in that channel. So we're doing our treaty fishing there, and by treaty we're allowed to fish, and that's where our traps are. You know, at the gas cavern site, many of the community went outside their gates. They were outside their gates, and you see that little girl. She has a sign there that says, "Please don't nuke me." What they're afraid of too is like you're sitting on a time bomb. You know, thousands of pressure of natural gas under your land. You know, what could happen to them? And we felt, you know, their pain too when they were consulted, and they could go and they can build in their backyard, put these things there, and so we joined alliances to help them, support them as well. We formed a Peace and Friendship Alliance recently, last year, and we just recently renewed our vision and our mission to help one another, just like what our treaty says. We help one another to live here and protect the lands and the water. We work on social justice issues and environmental racism and all the issues that we have as treaty people. We had visitors from New Brunswick, from the Peace and Friendship Alliance in New Brunswick and Woollestic communities to come down, and they're very much in our alliance as well. We learn a lot from them. They learn from us. And we share our and I was thinking of what they're doing is experimenting, just like they experimented on us when we were in residential school. They experimented on us, starving us. They experimented medical experiments on us. They did all these things to us. And we're still suffering the effects of those things. And now they want to experiment with our water. They want to experiment with this salt brine into our rivers, just like what they did in Pictou Landing when they experimented Boat Harbor. 50 some years later, it's still poison, and they still can't swim or eat the fish or anything. And it's still not cleaned up. All these promises from the governments that they're going to clean this up. They have the highest cancer rates, the highest rates of diseases in their community. And in Sipekne'katik has already high rates of cancer. We have a mine, a sand and gravel mine in our backyard that's been mining the sand off the top of the aquifer for over 52 years. And that silica sand that they make for fracking, they're manufacturing that there. Alton gas resistance on the highway. When we went to court, and we were waiting for the I guess the judge to make her decision, we all went up on the highway, and we celebrated that the Supreme Court case that they were hearing our case about granting permits without consultation, and we won our case because there wasn't procedural fairness. There was a lot more, I think, that our government is, our Minister of Environment is, she hasn't even been to our community. And Alton Gas has never been to our community. Just recently they came up to the reserve to try to meet with our chief and council. So far, right now, there's benefit. They want to make a benefit agreement with our community now. First, I heard it was $1 million. We'll give you. We'll help your elders build housing for your elders. So we'll help out with their heating bills, and that was like before Christmas. Now it's like up to $20 million. We'll build you a hockey rink. We'll build you, we'll buy you a piece of land for you to develop. So they're really, if they're willing to spend $20 million or any amount to get this done, then we know it's not just 2 caverns. We know that this is not just for them to store gas. This is for fracking infrastructure for something that's coming. We've been working together with all environmental groups, the Ecology Action Centre, Council of Canadians, Enrich, Environmental Noxiousness and Racial Inequities group at Dalhousie, and social groups come together to help us organize and help us to do these kinds of things and to educate people about what's happening. And when Standing Rock happened, I think it opened up everybody's eyes. And we're standing in Sipekne'katik here. Right now it's Dale's the one down the river standing. But we don't want to see that happen here. But we're prepared for whatever it takes to protect our water. We have a lot of people that are standing in solidarity with us, and a lot of people that are going out to educate about the salt in the communities around the Sipekne'katik River. Here's a picture of 11 caverns that they have planned, and there's 11 proposed cavern sites. So we know it's not only 2 or 4, and 2 failed already, and we know there's more. You know, one of the test sites for gas is in Gaze River, which is a stone's throw from Sipekne'katik. And to me, it's like they're building the infrastructure for frack gas, and soon they'll be fracking the heck out of Nova Scotia. And they'll be dumping the water. Look how long it took for them to get rid of that frack waste from Kennecott. They took it to Amherst, they took it to Dieppe, they took it to Windsor, they took it to Debert. They were running around with this water trying to get rid of it. And they said they treated it with reverse osmosis. And then they sent it to Brookfield at the cement plant to use as coolant, so they can steam it off in their process for cement. Isn't that crazy? So people are sleeping at night and they're steaming off the frack waste into the atmosphere. It's just crazy what they're doing. But that was 2 ponds that was left behind by Triangle Petroleum 2007, and it took them 8 years to get rid of that. Just imagine what they think they're going to do. If they ruin our water, they'll be dumping it into the Sipekne'katik River. We did a lot of work since 2014 when we were made aware of how, you know, what to do with educating our, you know, just everybody, as many people as we could. For my part, we did the water walk. Alton Gas came to Millbrook in 2014 to do a little info session. We asked questions and they didn't have any answers. Well, we pretty well told them, you go back and you come back when you have the answers. And they haven't been back yet. We had a Mi'kma'ki Water Symposium in October 2016 where Grandmother Josephine was our guest of honor, came teach about the sacredness of water and ceremony, and we had many speakers to come in and talk about the sacredness of our water, our treaty rights, you know, different things that we all shared. The history, we shared the history of the Mi'kmaq around our river systems, our water systems, and we shared a lot of information from other speakers that came in to talk about environmental racism. And this lady here is one of our oldest water warriors that's been on those front lines with us ever since it started, Miss Annabelle. We have ceremonies at the river often, and every month, changing up the seasons, we celebrate and pray, and we make offerings to the river and for the water everywhere. And so, just wanted to, we did march in Halifax with everyone to support Standing Rock, and we still stand with Standing Rock. We've worked with some of the other people, like Darren Porter, who's we're doing a lot of work on saving the Bay of Fundy, the tidal turbines, and where they're situated, and how they're going to have impact when they're killing a fish out in the bay before they can even get up to spawn. It's like it's almost like two-pronged attack on our water and on our river. And the reason why I do what I do is because of these guys, and these are my grandchildren and my family. And it's my responsibility as women, as a woman. Culturally, this is what we were given, this gift to bring life into the world. When we bring life, we carry life in water. And when we bring life forward, they come through the water. Our babies come through water when they're born. And then, as to honor that gift, we're given that responsibility to take care of the water, to protect the water. And this is my responsibility as a woman and as a grandmother for my future generations, my grandchildren that are here, but their grandchildren as well. Thank you.
Thanks, Dorene. So next we're going to hear from Dale Poulette, who lives in the truck house by the river now and has for 8 months. Is it 8 months yet? Yeah. Almost 8 months. Anyway, through a harsh winter, he's been living by the river, keeping watch. So I'm excited to hear what he has to say.
Hello, everybody. My name is Dale Poulette. I'm from Cape Breton, Eskasoni First Nation. I'm 30, well, going to be 32 on the 11th, so. And my kid's birthday too coming up, so I'm going to take a weekend off from the river this weekend coming up. I want to talk about why I joined the resistance. I joined the resistance because of all the problems going on with our lands, with fracking. Fracking was a major concern in Rexton, New Brunswick, if you guys remember that, in 2013. And a lot of things happened up there. There was a lot of arrests, a lot of people getting in trouble. But we worked together with allies. We worked with Acadians and French, and a bunch of people showed up. And is this one here? Mm-hmm. That picture right there is the one that motivated me to get up and to go help the First Nations, Warrior Society, and help whoever. During my time up there, I found out about a lot of the infrastructures that were happening. Found out about the fracking industry and what they were about. Once I realized what they were about, I knew it was big trouble for our land, so I decided to keep on helping the grassroots. There's a picture with some of our allies there. My buddy there, 50 Cal, I call him, from Halifax, well, St. Margaret's Bay. He's a good buddy. And there was so much going on there, even the kids were helping us. Tough little boys, man. And I stayed up there for 4 months, through the winter months anyway, because they wanted to shut down the camp. And I felt it was important to keep the camp open for grassroots people to do ceremony and to pray and offer ideas how to stop them. Eventually we ran out of ideas and came to our last resort, which was shutting down the highway completely. It was a bad thing to do, to start those tire fires, but that was one of our last resorts to stop in the thumper trucks, they called them, seismic testing trucks. Mm-hmm. Even before they showed up in Rexton, they were already in Nova Scotia, up in Lake Ansley there. Mm-hmm. So we knew they were in Nova Scotia getting their seismic testing done to look for these underground gases, storage pockets and all that. After that night, I think they gave up because they quit. They packed up and they left their office in Moncton. So that was a victory for us. And now we're dealing with Alton Gas. We got a lot of a lot of allies joined us for this fight, and we could use more because it helps to have more people on our side, especially you guys out here. It means a lot. I've been staying at the truck house for a little over 7 months. Figured the same thing, we keep the camp open to let people know what is going on and taking place there. Spread that information to other allies and other people. Try to wake up a lot of people at the same time. During my time up there, I did a lot of fishing with just a fishing rod and a trap. And Alton Gas, they have data on the fish. I guess they didn't include some of the fish in there that I've been catching. So their science is completely off a lot. Some Felix, my buddy there, is always helping me out. He's giving me breaks every now and then.
That must have been full.
Yeah, it was flooded. Just
What do we say on the river, we mean
on the river, literally.
Yeah.
Alton Gas is dirty. They're so dirty that I saved a young man's life there. His name is Sean Davenport, and I knew that they were going to lie about what really happened, so I took a video that same morning, and I didn't post the video on YouTube because I was pretty sure what they were going to do. So Alton wrote a statement saying that they called 911 and the boy didn't suffer from carbon monoxide poisoning. So after they released that statement, I released a YouTube video of the security admitting who called 911 and what happened. Still never got my thank you from them. Yeah, you can see the channel now. You can see Felix standing on the mud. That's about 15 feet of mud at least. Could be a little more, but that happened in about 2-3 months. Amazing, is it? And this is around, I think, middle of January. These are all the icebergs that clogged up in there. They brought the mud also with them. I've been so busy that people have been calling me to go support them all over the place, so I went to go help a buddy of mine with the turbines. And, I could use some more help. There's a picture of the truck house I've been living in all winter long. It's a 14 by 14, has a little wood stove in it. And I was told just to stay there and pray, keep it open so that people can go there and witness what's going on and also do their prayers and ceremonies. And I'll continue to do that for as long as it takes to stop this. And this is the main reason right here why I do what I do, because of those 2 little children. Their birthday's coming up on the 9th, both of them. They're 2 years apart. They mean the world to me, so I'll do everything to protect their future. Blalio.
Who is an environmental scientist and educator. She's working on her PhD at Dell in earth science, and her particular focus is looking at the way that water, soil, and climate all kind of intersect and work together. Do you want to come up here? Okay. So please, welcome. Let me just do something.
Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak with you today. I am both humbled and inspired by your words. Thank you so much. Often when we scientists we're kind of isolated in our labs, and we don't think too much beyond the particular problem of the day or the equation or trying to solve a technical problem. And it's so important to remember why exactly even as a young child, why I wanted to be an environmental scientist, why I wanted to do this work. Thank you. So very emotional. Climate change is the most pressing issue of our time. So I'm going to start with that in terms of the sanctity of thinking about our Earth. Talk a little bit about natural gas itself and about methane. The environmental impacts, from my perspective as a biogeochemist, of what I see in terms of water, and then the impact on the climate, and then just the local concerns we have even in Antigonish. So when we look at least online, we're struck constantly by bad news. In fact, it's sometimes really tough. I pulled a couple of these, a previous presentation I did, I left these up because they're still pressing. We see climate change impacting bees and flowering. The timing's off. We see global warming increasing the spread of dead zones in our ocean. We see an immediate risk to national security issues as we have famine and desperate people everywhere. We have an urgent call, and we still see an inertia in our cultures. Lately, the two I added, extreme weather events are linked to climate change and their impact on the jet stream, and ocean circulation changing and ultimately impacting our climate in very subtle and very strange ways that we're just starting to see. So, oops. Go. We have a natural greenhouse effect on our planet, which we are very thankful for. Carbon dioxide does an important job in trapping heat and keeping it here. But we've gone too far in the balance. The balance has been lost. When we emit more and more of these heat-trapping gases, we're starting to get into a bit uncertain territory. So we have models that attempt, and there are several, so all these mathematical models are just doing best guesses. They're trying and really forecasting a dire future where we see large increases in temperature. So this is just pulled from a textbook. It's not even a very, very fancy one, but just a first-year university textbook. The main problems we see, so if you're forcing the climate to warm, it's in red, cooling in black, but if you look at the very top, carbon dioxide, and then we have methane. This is where we'll get to natural gas in a bit, but methane is the next bar down, along with its companion, nitrous oxide, another very potent greenhouse gas. So these force the climate into creating more and trapping more heat. Methane, as being this natural gas, natural, they're all part of our world, but we've coined this a natural gas. Natural gas and petroleum systems are one of the largest part of this emissions. Our industrial agricultural complex with cattle being this enteric fermentation down below, very large part of that as well. And then several others, including coal mining. Just the mere act of mining coal releases methane to the atmosphere as well. We have a new threat with the melting permafrost in the north. We have large amounts of methane bubbling out through, and also from our oceans as well. So we have a major problem. The problem is that methane is a more potent greenhouse gas than carbon dioxide. It's in lower quantities right now, but it's more potent. It has a stronger effect. Over a 20-year window, it's actually 84 years more potent. Over time, it doesn't have a very long, or as long as some other gases, lifespan in the atmosphere. So over time, it does degrade. But unfortunately, that 100-year window, that 34 times more potent, is what is used in the models that project our future climate. So, but it's the shorter windows we need to worry about. This 86 times more potent, it's relevant. It's really important. So when we talk about expanding a natural gas industry in Nova Scotia, and damaging our water, this becomes a massive concern, because now Nova Scotia becomes a major actor in this very global problem. Methane is sold as a bridge that people argue it's less impactful. When you burn it, it's cleaner. Yeah, okay, sure. It's 30% less carbon dioxide emitted from its combustion than coal. It's 45% less than when you burn, oh sorry, the other way around, oil and coal. So, okay, sure. But there are massive other issues associated with it, including emissions of methane all along its production. All along the infrastructure, you see major issues with it. These gas caves that are being proposed to be created, sure, okay, they're saying 222,000 homes per year could be fully supplied. It sounds great. $17 million in savings, as I pulled off some of the websites. Okay. Major impacts. Our water, our sacred water in our province, and all through our areas are being threatened. So as has been already alluded to, we have massive changes, and we're not even sure, and I put this failures, even if this is a suitable site. As Robin had alluded to, a retired geologist just last month has spoken out, maybe this isn't even a suitable site. There's questionable geology even at play, and some of the science isn't very solid. So maybe all of the solution mining, when they finally do a pressure test, maybe it's going to even fail. So this is a bad idea. Also, the leaks of the natural gas throughout its life cycle, throughout the infrastructure. There's estimates of these estimates of 1 to 9% losses. That's massive when you consider the potency of this greenhouse gas. This is through its production, delivery, storage, and its use. So already Robin had discussed solution mining, and we've seen the images of this holding pond. Okay. So just as a quick note then, in terms of some of the science I had looked at with the effects on aquatic life, on the fish species that are that live in this river. Right now, some of the science had looked at response curves of toxicity to various stages of so from eggs and larvae for several fish species up to mature. But they didn't test in this very critical point, which actually is where the salinity changes that there actually are relevant for the river. So this is a major fault in some of the science. Information isn't good enough yet. The effects aren't ultimately known. There's also a question that 260 parts per trillion. Ocean water is around 30. So this is the concentration of the brine when it comes out of these caverns. So as it is pumped out from the salt formation itself. So they've argued that putting that brine into the holding pond will allow it to be diluted and mixed, but it is very, very questionable from my perspective. I think from a lot of you that it just really makes sense. That's a very large difference in concentration. So it's a little bit suspect. And then the timing of fish studies. They've carried out studies at very improper times. So they haven't actually caught times when they're spawning, times when the relevant species might be present and not. So I think that better studies have to be performed in order for them to say that there's no impact on the aquatic life. So that's just a the first stage of revisiting some of these ideas. There's also potential for groundwater contamination from the pipeline, and I actually wasn't aware of the plan that you had mentioned about going through wetlands and the actual, like that's a whole, I could add a whole bunch more as a result of that. That's absolutely massive. So pumping the brine through those areas across farmers' fields, and then also this contamination potential from of methane into the groundwater. So this is a mess. It's really so if we look, this excess methane being put into our atmosphere as a result of natural gas infrastructure. This recent article, fairly recent, just a couple years old in Science, took a little bit of a comparative study of ultimately the excess methane produced from natural gas. And it's absolutely massive, as all across this various aspects of its production, from drilling and fracturing, production, processing, transportation, and then the final use. There's ways for methane to leak at every stage. So the urban integration of natural gas, right now there's even plans in Antigonish to bring it into the town and to supply the hospital as well. But these leak sources should be a concern throughout the province, like you've alluded. Okay, like you've alluded to, there's a plan. There's a reason for them to be putting this much energy and investment into this project, because it's part of a bigger picture, which we're not privy to at this point. Only whispers that we hear. Boiled down, then, I don't like to put this much text, but I wanted to read this. Heritage Gas claims that bringing natural gas to the local community, this is the local company, will save millions in energy costs through reduced greenhouse gas emissions from the combustion, compared to using other fossil fuels. But the actual impact of the use of methane, with its very high risk of leaks, means that greenhouse gas emissions are still quite high. Ultimately, there's no change, and risks to the aquatic ecosystems are high as well. I'll just skip over this. I think I've kind of talked about this. So the local action. So we see Heritage Gas, bringing natural gas. This was 2014. 2016, we have appeals dismissed. But now we have maybe some changes. Natural gas for Antigonish is on hold. Maybe they're waiting now. The broadening process, just in January, this was set to go ahead. But now we have a legal victory. Just after that came out. And then this article in the Chronicle Herald by a retired geologist really pokes holes at some of the ideas about the geology. So we're starting to see some action. Knowledge is power. So my very, very last 10 seconds, there's a way for us, even within our water, to be able to gain important knowledge as citizen scientists. Science doesn't have to be done in the confines of the labs. Science can be meaningful information gained and gleaned from our ecosystems all around us in a very organized and standardized way. So the community-based environmental monitoring that's done through, in terms of water, done through St. Mary's University, I think is an important first step. They have free equipment you can book, and you can actually test salinity of your water. So you'd be able to actually go and routinely and upload the data, and they actually provide training. And so you'd be able to have that power of that knowledge to be able to show the changes. So if they do go ahead with any action, even with all this turbidity, all the silt from the dredging, you'd be able to say, look at the changes. And the sooner it starts, the better. Some of this can start right away, really. So contacting this group in Halifax would be really important, I think. So I think this is all about balancing priorities. Obviously, I think we have our hearts in the right place. We listen to the really important words of Chief Seattle. We're all connected. We did not weave the web of life. We are merely a strand in it. Whatever we do to the web, we do to ourselves. So thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it.
Big round of applause for all three of our speakers. Yeah, I just wanted to kind of take stock of where we've come so far in the evening. We have almost half an hour for questions, and I just want to sort of summarize what I'm taking from all of this. I'm really hearing from Dorene about the real issues of people living on the front lines of this project, and on the front lines of this experimentation that's going on with our water and with some people's lives. And I'm so happy to, and Dorene was saying that, you know, this project is really just opening the door to a whole bunch of other bad ideas after this first very bad idea. And then Carrie Ellen told us a lot about why exactly that is such a terrible idea and what opening that door really means. And I'm just so honored every time Dale shares with us all the real sacrifices that have to be made on the front lines of these struggles to protect our collective futures. So I'm really thankful to know and work with all of you. I wonder if before we go to questions, anyone wants to reflect on anything that other panelists said, or just if you have a new thought, take a few minutes to share it. Okay.
Well, there's one thing that I kind of thought about, and it's like when I hear about different indigenous peoples around the world that are fighting for their water, for their lives. They're fighting for their lives, not just their water or their land. They're fighting for their lives, where corporations can come in with the government, send in the army, send in whoever they want to protect those corporations and let them destroy their land and their lives and their children, their lands. They're being flooded out, they're being burned out by tree cutting, all these different things that are happening. And it's like an attack on Mother Earth. But most of the people, like I said, as being women, it's our responsibility to take care of the water. So most of these actions against these companies are the grandmothers and the mothers of those children that are standing up, because that's what they have to do. When I look at the violence against women in our society, I see the violence against Mother Earth. What they're doing to Mother Earth, this is why there's so much violence against women in our society. And I think it's something that we all should take responsibility for. Stand up for that. No more. Stop. And I know it's somebody said, it's really a hard thing to do, to stand up. It is alone when you're alone, but it's not hard when you're all together.
Yeah, and I want to pick up on one thing, I guess several of you touched on that. Yeah, when the government or a company wants to do something like build the Dakota Access Pipeline, they bring in the military and they bring in whoever they want. And Dale, you mentioned that Blackwater was one of the companies that came to beat everyone up at Elsipogtog. Blackwater is a paramilitary company that was very heavily involved in the war in Iraq, and they're a paramilitary, so they're bringing in paramilitary companies in Canada and in the United States and everywhere to just smack down these resistances against projects that destroy life. So I just want to be clear about the severity of the injustice that's happening, but also the power that we can all bring to this fight, and the importance of working together and staying together. And I also want to say I laugh a lot when I talk about this, because it's just so dumb, and I can't understand it. So I'm laughing a lot. I laughed a lot at the beginning about the mud filling the channel, and I laughed when you said it too, because it's hilarious. The integral part of their project was immediately filled with mud. I can't think of anything sillier than that, but it also is really worrisome, because I think it shows the company's incompetence and inability to understand the ecosystems they're working in. And so I think that's a very innocuous way that their incompetence has shown itself, where their stuff is covered in mud, and that's awesome. But another way their incompetence could show up is that they don't understand what they're doing at all. They drill into some salt that can't hold gas. Suddenly it's bubbling into everyone's water and stuff's on fire. Sorry if that sounds extreme, but it is a possibility. And so I just want to be clear that I'm not making light of this, but I have to laugh or I'll cry. So with that, I'd love to hear some questions. And if anyone on the live stream has questions, you can write them on the Facebook event that you're currently on. Unfortunately, all of my technology is just really gone toast right now. So if someone else wants to help me look at the questions, great. If any questions come up, let me know. But if there's any questions from the crowd, I'd love to hear them now. Anybody? Yep.
information that you shared, I'm sorry I forget your name, Carol, that you shared, a lot of it is very complex. There's a whole lot of numbers, and my brain doesn't necessarily work all that well with a whole lot of numbers, but I feel like maybe there's a really good way for me to disseminate that information in an easier way. And I know that science communications is something that it's very hard to do. I'm wondering how, if at all, I can find my place in sharing some of this very important information with, let's say, somebody like my uncle who's a climate change denier.
I just want to repeat so everyone on the live stream can hear. The question was, if you're not really a numbers person, how can you still communicate important information about climate change and other environmental issues to people you know and to the public?
That's an excellent point, because I think that's ultimately what that barrier between a kind of a more academic type science is sometimes, and the message that's within it. So people can get kind of bogged down in some of the figures. And so even myself, so it's actually great, I struggle with that myself too, because I was thinking, okay, great, I took out a lot of the complexity and I really distilled it down. So it's important for me to hear this, because I really want the main messages to come across, not for people to be turned off by some of the content. But at the same time, there is real power in some of the numbers, like having at least magnitudes, like orders of magnitude, to be able to share, so that people get this relative sense. So maybe that would be a place to start, is trying to share some of the main findings and your personal passion with it as well, like why you connect so strongly with that particular scientific idea, like why. Because I think that's what we do as humans too. Like we want to share these important stories. The content is scientific, but the story is very important. So to sharing your story, but still backing it up with information that doesn't get in too technical. But once again, I can't take the magnitudes out and the relative importance of some of the figures, because I think, you know, some of those pie charts and some of those bar graphs and all that, they're still really key. Like I think we still need to have a space for the numbers.
Of course.
Yeah, like I think, but distilling it down to the main idea, like what you take from a particular idea or particular scientific idea. That's the main thing to bring across. But I've been reading a lot of, and very frustrated with this idea about the climate deniers. It's really fascinating, because we see a lot of the evidence and we can observe it, but it's still showing us human nature. We still have perspectives. We have paradigms and these lenses we see the world through. I don't know about the deniers. I'm not sure, because certainly a lot of the research on the scientific communication, some people you can't get to. I'm a little frustrated, I have to say, but all of the information can be in front of them, and they're still going to say that it's all wrong. So, yeah. But I don't think we should stop trying. I absolutely, and to speak from your heart and your passion about the things you see and the information that you've read about and gleaned, and that you can communicate through your own words.
Thank you.
Another question?
It kind of ties into his question. Being in Nova Scotia and all of our families pretty much having been split and thriving off the gas companies, how do you start a dialogue with your own family when they absolutely understand? It's just we're splitting their loyalties, and they're still out there. You know, so they're working to send everything home to us. They want to support us, but how do we support them and their isolation? With a good dialogue that gets them, you know, understanding that we don't judge them, we just want some help.
That is an excellent question. I think we're all engaged in this right now. It's so hard. We're all still, I imagine, still driving fossil fuel cars. We're still supporting industrial agriculture. We're all still part of this culture. So I think just building an awareness about it, like so that they're very fully conscious about the choices they're making. You can still make the choices and know, okay, But we still have to transition. Somehow we have to make a break.
Yeah.
We have to. But I don't know if any of us actually know how this happens.
That's the thing, like you can't push too hard or you just get the empathy fatigue and they turn away and they just keep walking, you know, so.
I think part of this is about changing the conversation, and to put the blame on people who drive cars and eat carrots from wherever and everything's and people who work at like the bottom rung of the oil industry.
Yeah.
I think that's a real divide and conquer tactic pushed on us by the oil industry and by like the elite in general. And so I think to push back on that in a really hard way, like, yeah, I took a bus here, it burned gasoline. Sorry, I took a bus here to fight the fossil fuel industry. Like, I think that it's a real false dichotomy that I think happens a lot. And I think to approach it in that way, that it's like, you're not evil if you work for a gas company because you need to have money to feed your family. The people who are bad are the people at the top who are controlling the policies and our information to make these projects possible. Those are the people who are bad and doing bad things, not the guy installing the connection to your house for heritage gas, you know? Like, it's not, these are orders of magnitude of severity, to borrow your word. So I think, to approach the conversation from that direction has worked for me and is much less frustrating because it doesn't divide people as much, so. I just want to see if, do you want to go ahead?
Yeah. My question has to do with the regulatory environment in Nova Scotia. From listening to the three panelists, what I got from it is that, or rather the question I have is, for a project like this, before it happens, is there any law or any mechanism through which there needs to be some comprehensive environmental assessment? And was that done for this project, or was it done but then some stuff was left out?
Yeah, so just for the live stream folks, the question is, what's the regulatory environment? Was there an environmental assessment that had to happen? Does anyone, I can do that one. So in Nova Scotia, there's an Environmental Assessment Act, so every project that sort of meets certain criteria has to do an environmental assessment. There's also one nationally, and that's for different scales of projects. One of the foundational ideas of environmental assessment is one project, one assessment. This project had two. I don't know, that's crazy to me. So right from the get-go, this was not an honest environmental assessment. And then if we look at the, I'll explain that further. The two pieces of the environmental assessment were one for the caverns and the creation of the caverns, and a second assessment for the pipeline that will carry the gas. And I don't know, there's never been a good answer of why they separated that. But I think what that does is it allows the cumulative impact to slip through the cracks because it looks like two smaller projects with two smaller impacts and so forth. The environmental assessments themselves, I would not. What they do is they take a cursory look at the environment, the ecosystems that could be impacted by a project, and they don't get into the weeds of exactly which species are there and exactly where that stand of old growth is and exactly what the impacts will be. Like some of the things it didn't include, like I read the whole thing, it was so boring and long and not informative. Like they didn't talk about the research to do with seismic activity, so they didn't even talk about whether or not caverns like this could have seismic impacts on like earthquakes. But like reading other science about other projects, there's like a pretty clear consensus in the literature that like there are seismic earthquake impacts of projects like this. So there's those gaps. Then there's also like the species, like they're like, oh well, there are these fish in the river and they're only here at these times and it's cool, we'll stop brining in June because the bass. But like Dale's out on the river every day and finds fish they never even talked about in their assessment. So like they did an assessment, but it's like wholly uninformative. And then the assessment only goes so far, and so then what happened was like the company's like, we want to do this thing, and the government's like, do an assessment, and they're like, well, here's our 1,000-page assessment, and the government's like, sweet, you can go ahead, and here's 12 conditions that you have to meet. And then after that, none of the information is public. So what we do know is that, you know, the company was supposed to do a year's worth of groundwater monitoring to make sure that salt and methane weren't getting into the groundwater. The best information I have on that is the like, yes, that was complete. I don't have the report. I don't have anyone who was involved in it. Like, we don't know. There are other conditions, like for the pipeline side, none of the conditions are met yet for building the gas pipeline. They haven't even looked at the wetlands. Like they started talking about this 10 years ago. Like wetlands change, and sometimes quickly. So like we don't know any, like so there is an environmental assessment. I suppose what I'm trying to get at is like it's insufficient. And the purpose of it is not to look holistically at the sustainability of our society and how a particular project could contribute to that sustainability. I think that would be a great program for environmental assessment. What it does instead is try to minimize whatever damage without really giving anyone the proper information to engage critically at like a social level on environmental projects. Sorry, that was long-winded. I'm mad about it. Barbara?
To add to that, Robin, and the other regulatory process is around Indigenous rights. And in this area, we're covered by the Peace and Friendship treaties, and we have, Mi'kmaq people have rights to fish and hunt and put up truck houses. And so they need to achieve our free, prior, and informed consent, which they didn't do to this project. And that's why it got halted in the courts, because a couple of Mi'kmaq bands stepped forward and said, and pursued this. So that is the other regulatory process that needs to meet a standard for any of these projects throughout Canada.
Cool. Are there any questions from the live stream? Okay. Any other questions in the crowd?
This is for Dorene and Dale. I'm wondering, you talked a lot about allies and how allies have been involved. And could you tell us about some of the things that allies, whether especially non-Indigenous allies, have done, or ways that they have helped? And are there some other things that non-Indigenous people might also be doing in the future?
Yes, they've come, well, we started the Peace and Friendship Alliance. We also had the Stop Alton Gas group. We have several groups on Facebook that we share information. We have events to plan those events that we went out on the highway to set up the camp. When we went out to the highway to pass out information, and we had the police involved, you know, to come and protect the walkers, you know. They and Department of Highways came out and put up pylons, and they made it safe so that we could slow down the highway. And we told them how long we would be there. We're really cooperative, you know, like with putting this message out and getting the cooperation from the people that we need to just to keep safety, because there's everybody out there. And people, you know, photocopy, they type up the handouts, the different things that we're using, making posters, whatever it is, and T-shirts, you know, like we were doing everything to try to raise awareness about the Alton Gas. You know, we have these buttons right now, Stop Alton Gas. People are like, what is that? So that starts a conversation right there when you see that. Dale's been down at the river, and people go down to the river to visit, to bring food, to bring just to come to the river to pray, or just to see, connect with that river, you know, connect with the spirits there, you know, the spirit of the land, and come down and share stories, you know, like Dale talked to him about, you know, his day, what he's doing there, and explaining things to people who come, people from the neighborhood, you know, along the river. All these last, over the summer and all through the fall, they drop down the river to, you know, to see Dale and to talk
or donate firewood, or
to
to ask whatever we need. They'll help us, even, you know, fundraising money to get us to come to these events, or food, whatever stuff that we need at the river.
Yeah.
So just winterizing, you know how you've seen that flood, you know, with the cooler floating by. So getting all that cleaned up again, you know, after the floods, and putting down hay so on the dike and around the truck house, so people can actually walk and, you know, come through. There's a lot of things, gas money for people to get to events like this, and to Halifax or wherever. And I think just listening to what we have to say and going back to where you live, you know, at home and your friends and your family, and sharing the information that you have, and going on to the Alton Gas, the official page of the Alton Gas Assistance, official page, Truckhouse, the Truckhouse.
Treaty Truckhouse.
Treaty Truckhouse, yeah. And there's several like groups that have Stop Alton Gas, or grassroots grandmothers. There's several groups that you can look for information, and we put out event page. So if you're on a list or on one of those groups, you'll get the information, and it's to share information and to join us.
I'll take in there too. We have some information at the back about what we're hoping you will do. So there's a little flyer that I'll make sure everyone gets. One side is some instructions to get in touch with the Environment Minister, Margaret Miller.
Yeah, Margaret.
Because
Sorry,
since
that's a good one.
since the court case,
She doesn't listen.
Anyway, since the court case, the project's kind of been tossed back onto her lap, and she needs to do something about it and make a decision. So this is a time that it's really opportune to be pushing on her to just stop it outright. And then on the other side of that same handout, there's an invitation to the next meeting of Responsible Energy Action, RIA, the folks who helped us organize this evening. Thank you very much. So if you would like to continue being involved in the fight against Alton Gas, then you can go to the next RIA meeting. I see a couple more questions. Who has questions?
I just want to mention there's also a couple of email lists,
Yep.
sign-up sheets
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
for RIA and Pieces.
Okay. Other questions?
I
Yes.
just wondered how many people have seen Bruce McKinnon's cartoon with regard to all the problems the world has speaking environmentally. Anybody seen or done it? He has the world as a patient in a doctor's office. The world's very sick. And the doctor's there with a stethoscope and says, "There's no easy way to tell you this. You've got people."
Really?
So we might have time for one quick question before we wrap up. Otherwise, feel free to hang around. So I guess I'll just do my little closing spiel. Thank you so much to our speakers. That's great. Yeah, thanks to obviously our speakers, thanks to you all for coming and paying attention and learning more about this struggle. So on the back table, there's a bunch of handouts. There's some like news articles about what's happened so far. There's the handout inviting you to take further action with us. There's sign-up lists for the Council of Canadians, the Responsible Energy Action, and the third one is Peace and Friendship Alliance. There's also pins there that you can have, and some posters, which are by donation, please. So feel free to be generous with that. The posters are very beautiful and were made by an artist in Halifax who just felt like doing it. Look how nice they are! Oh my goodness. I want to thank everyone who was involved in putting this event on. John's the Canada Research Chair for Sustainability and Social Change, and he's embarrassed every time I say that. Fernwood Publishing chipped in, and so did the Loaded Ladle Food Co-op in Halifax, and of course the Council of Canadians where I work. And I desperately want to thank all of our speakers and the people fighting on the front lines all the time. So please feel free to hang around, ask questions, chat with each other, get to know each other. There's food and coffee and tea. Let's hang out. Let's do some stuff. Thank you very much.
Thank you.